Episode 63. He climbs skyscrapers just for fun. The French Spiderman, Alain Robert. Welcome to The Art of Excellence, a show about people doing extraordinary things in their lives. I'm your host, Glenn Zweig. Thanks for joining me. My guest today is Alain Robert. Alain is the world's leading free climber and is known all over the world as the French Spiderman for free climbing skyscrapers. He has climbed 163 buildings in 70 different countries over 25 years. He has a documentary on Amazon Prime titled My Next Challenge and is the author of a book, With Bare Hands, the true story of Alain Robert, the real-life Spider-Man. Alain, welcome to the show.
I'm glad, this is actually the second time we are trying, man.
Yes, well, second time is the charm, I think. We'll see.
Well, I'm fine, it's more like finding the right condition. And, I live in Bali. Bali is the end of the world, meaning it's not as sophisticated as many other countries.
Actually, just because you brought it up, maybe we could start there. I actually went to Bali for our honeymoon. When I think of Bali, I think of a place where there's a very low-key vibe. It's very chill. And it's interesting when I think of that dichotomy between you're just chilling out and hanging out and having a very peaceful existence in Bali with, you're going and doing these crazy life-threatening climbs all the time. So when you're not seeking adventure and doing these really intense climbs, and we'll get more into the climbing later, is that you, just sort of like a chilling out kind of guy?
Pretty much, I like going on the beach. I like especially early mornings or sunset. I get up like 5 o'clock pretty much every morning. Then I am on the beach. It's still dark. It's like 6:10, and then I am just sitting on the sands and just watching waves and watching across because I can see Java Island. Sometimes I can see volcanoes. What I love is like it's always different. The light, the sounds, the tide as well. I have reached 58 a few days back, and this is a different age in my life, which maybe I am more into introspection, trying to understand more, why I did this, why I did that, what I keep on doing it as well, because for me it is out of the question to stop now, at least for as long as I will be in a good health. I would be climbing on a regular basis.
Yeah. So, Alon, if we could maybe rewind the clock, you've talked about how growing up you were a little insecure, you were lacking self-confidence, you needed to find a way to stand out. Can you talk about that period of your life?
I was introvert. I was not easy with people. I was kind of afraid with people. Yeah, I felt completely insecure with myself, afraid pretty much of everything, for sure afraid of dying. Later on, when I realized that maybe I would love to climb, then realizing that actually I was really afraid of heights. So let's say I was not really an advantage person. I really started from scratch, even below scratch. A bit like there was nothing on me to become a climber, nothing at all, except that somehow I wanted.
Did I hear you say that you were afraid of heights?
Oh yeah, I was really afraid of. I was terrified by heights actually.
you, and you chose climbing of all the things.
So yeah, what is very surprising, first of all, I choose climbing, but free soloing. Normally, already people are afraid of height. They are not even thinking about climbing, even though they are using a rope. For them, it's already out of questions that they don't want to climb. For some reason, I did choose the purest way of climbing, free soloing.
So I had heard that one of your first climbs, maybe your very first building climb, was I think you were pretty young. School had let you out early. Your parents weren't home yet, and you didn't have a way to get in. So you decided, what the heck, I'm going to go ahead and climb the building. I think it was like a 7 story structure. So was that something that was just a spur of the moment kind of thing? And was that the very beginning of this climbing adventure?
Definitely the very beginning of my climbing adventure. But first of all, I have watched a lot that building. Not that I have dreamed that maybe one day I would climb it, but at least I studied it a lot before. But I just never found up the right occasion to do it.
Well, before the building climbing, you were rock climbing for a number of years. And I'm not just talking your garden variety rock climbing, but as you pointed out, solo climbing, free solo climbing, I should say, which is climbing without any protection. So there is literally zero margin for error. Essentially, if you fall, you die. That's it.
Yeah, it's pretty much like that.
I mean, there's plenty of risk, if you will, of climbing with protection. I mean, the ropes could get untied, some of the holdings could break. Why the free solo climbing? Why take it to the point where one small little mistake, it doesn't even have to be your own mistake, it could just be something that comes loose from the rock. Why were you so compelled to take that kind of risk?
I wanted to do something brave and courageous with my life. So in a way, climbing was not enough. It has to be something also potentially deadly. And that's why I did choose this purest form of climbing, which is simply using anything, just using your bare hands and climbing. And if you make a mistake, you pay the full price, and this is your life. You know, I have always said to people that if I had some wings, I wouldn't climb because actually I am not really interested by sports. I am interested by something that has to be challenging. And for me, it means challenging with my life, involving potentially life and death.
Well, I know you've been asked what scares you the most, and your response is a boring life. So I'm wondering, to some degree, do you feel like life just isn't worth living if you can't do these extreme stunts?
I was listening a video on YouTube 2 weeks ago, and they were saying that in the US, for example, 85% of the people they are having a boring job, meaning they are not living. They are waiting for Friday evening, and they are pretty much only living like 2 days a week, which is not enough. And then they were minusing with the number of hours you are sleeping. They are minusing when finally you are reaching the age of being retired. And the survey shows that actually when you are retired, you only fit 2 days out of 7. 80% of your lifetime is a waste, and it's kind of sad. And I wanted not that. I understood that when I was really young, and for me, it was something spontaneous. Like, well, why should I do things that I don't like to do? Instead, if I can do things that I love to do, it's much better.
Hmm. Well, back to the free soloing. I want to point out here that you weren't just pretty good at it, you were probably the best in the world at it. Maybe some could argue the best in the world ever. And, just to put it in perspective, I think some people might be familiar with Alex Honnold, who some consider to be one of the best rock climbers in the world, certainly the best free soloer in the world today. And there was a documentary recently where he climbed El Capitan, free soloed El Capitan. And El Cap is a 513A grade, which is lingo for the technical difficulty of a climb. But back when you were doing it, you had actually climbed at least some sections that were 513Ds, which is a much more technically challenging climb.
No, you are right. Okay, back to the end of the 80s. Yes, as a matter of fact, I was free soloing 513D, and the thing is, I had nearly no margin. Meaning, Alex, he gave an interview recently because he knows me. I met him. He knows what I did. He read my book. As he was explaining during the interview, he said, "Look, actually, this guy, what he was doing is kind of insane because he had no margin. He was pretty much free soloing at the highest level than what he could do with or without a rope.
This is Alex talking about you, correct?
Yeah. And actually, when I heard it, I was kind of mind blowing, like because it shows that Alex is a very intelligent person. He's a very humble person, and he's not afraid to say that. Look, when I did free solo, the free rider, I had a lot margin. I had like 5 degrees margin compared than what Alain was doing when he was free soloing. It was pretty much very close to what he could do with or without safety. As he said, on his side, at least he had like 5 degrees margin. So chances for him to fall when he free soloed El Capitan was pretty much insignificant.
Well, well, for those that watched it, though, my palms were sweating throughout. And I wasn't trying to take anything away from him. I think he's amazing. I'm just trying to let people know because you sort of did this before the days of social media. And, they didn't have this free soloing documentary on you. So I just want people to know, how great you were at it. And which leads me to this question, which is, how did you become so good at it? Was it about how hard you're working? Was it how driven you were? Or did you have some kind of risk tolerance so on that others didn't and you were willing to push the boundaries further? Like what would you attribute it to?
Maybe the first thing is I was promised to a great future in climbing, and in 1982 I fell 2 times, and the second times was really, really, really bad. And then doctors they said that I was not going to be able to climb back ever. They just told me that already you are lucky, you are alive. It's pretty much like a miracle because a guy's falling from 15 meters head first and landing on some limestones normally is fully dead. And I had difficulties, to accept it. I did fight so hard to climb, just even to climb my parents' building and later on climbing. And suddenly, all of my dreams they were completely gone. They were completely shattered. At the end of the day, I decided, okay, that doesn't matter too much. At least I want to climb back. Although maybe what I will be able to climb back regarding the doctors, it will be like climbing a steep staircase, but at least I'm gonna try. And then I've been trying, training, recovering, and it went far beyond my expectations. I never imagined that one day I would be the guy who has climbed the hardest route free solo. It was just totally unthinkable.
Well, are you trying to say that? And again, this was a pretty big injury you had. In fact, I heard that you developed vertigo as a result of it. I guess I'm trying to figure out like was that injury and the doctor saying you're not going to climb again? Was that some kind of spark for you that I'm going to prove them wrong?
No, I didn't. I didn't do anything for anyone. I did it for myself. Meaning, there was this deep frustration. I was completely down. I was shattered. I was young. I was only 19. I had kind of a promising life ahead, and then suddenly I was pretty much dead. And then maybe I took it as a kind of a personal revenge. First of all, I had to climb back. Whatever, I had to climb back. I just didn't know exactly what I would be able to do. I knew that my handicap was really high. At one point, they gave me 66% disabled, which is a lot. But instead of crying on myself, I have just decided that I am going to exploit the 34% remaining.
What's interesting is as you were at your peak and one of the best in the world, you pretty much exited the sport. And I think it was as the rock climbing had gained in popularity over the years, you just seemed to lose interest in it somehow. And this was a quote of yours, which is, for me, climbing was not about racing or competing, it was about freedom and self expression. So, Alain, is that why you turned to buildings? Because it somehow the sport had become too popularized and it somehow violated your values or something?
I've never been somebody who is competing against people. I have always been competing with myself. What I found very interesting about climbing when I was younger, then suddenly was becoming more like a sport with a lot of regulation, and then I started to feel like I was kind of far away from the values of my beginning. My whole life I found up my own way for training my mental, for training my muscles. I had all in me, and then I just decided to make it myself, to make my own rules. And then, yes, beginning of the 90s, I shifted into building because I started to get a little bit tired about it was a very small middle rock climbers. There was a lot of jealousies. I didn't really like it much. I just wanted to be apart from that world.
Hmm. So, as you move from rock climbing to, let's call it, I guess, urban climbing, doing these skyscrapers, do you remember the very first one?
That was in Chicago. It was the City Corp Center. And on that day was I think US they had the football World Cup, and it was the final. And I climbed that 48-story buildings, and I right away I found it amazing because first of all the vertical of the building was amazing, and I had a scale because I could see the cars, I could see the human beings. Meaning when you are climbing a building, you can size everything. When you are climbing a mountain, you are not sizing anything because you don't know that what you are seeing at the bottom, if it's a bush, a tree, you can't size anymore any longer. I have been quite fascinated by this aspect. I really loved it. And I remember the first time I landed in Chicago, I saw the John Hancock and the Sears Tower, and it looks like gigantic. And I never ever thought it was in 94 that in 1999 I would be free soloing the Sears Tower.
But Alon, what prompted the first climb though? What was behind that? You woke up one day and said, maybe I'll try to climb a building, or did someone bring up the idea for you, or yeah, how did it happen?
I never got this idea of climbing a building because I just thought a building it's impossible. It's for the spiders, but it's not for the human beings. One of the film director in Italy, they contacted me and they said, "Look, I am doing a series for Sector No Limits. It's a watchmaker in Switzerland, and they would like to get you in their team because they think that what you are doing is amazing." And then I was really happy about it. And my initial plan was to climb a 513C on each continent, free soloing a 513C, 513D on each continent, but they declined and they said, no, actually, we would like you to climb some buildings. And wow, I never ever thought about climbing buildings.
How does it compare to rock climbing? If you were to compare the two, is one more demanding than the other?
some of the buildings I've climbed, which now I wouldn't be able to do it any longer, they were really, really exhausting, meaning using pretty much my 100% strength. It's quite simple to explain that you need a certain energy to climb, and if you're having enough energy, you can make it all the way to the top. If you are not having that power, you are dead.
Hmm. You've said that you often choose buildings to climb based on their beauty. Is that true? It's just aesthetics for you? I assume to some degree there's got to be the challenge and it's got to be a high profile project for you. But is beauty a big part of the equation?
Used to be, but not always. I was also trying to find challenging buildings. Some of them, yes, they were iconic buildings, like the Petronas in Kuala Lumpur. Petronas in Kuala Lumpur, I love this story because it's pretty much like a love story. It took 12 years. Two failed attempt in a country which is not really a democracy, and a lot of shit, being jailed in the bad conditions. You know, when the lawyer is telling you maybe you're gonna get 5 years, and you know the prison in Malaysia, and it's really a shithole. And that was amazing, you know, after 12 years, when I stood up at the top of the Petronas, nearly a half kilometer away from the ground, and that was magical. And maybe along the way I was going to change my mind. I knew because the lawyer told me a few days before, maybe you're going to get 5 years in jail. And I said, okay. And let me think about it. And when I was at the top, I was just thinking, wow, fuck. Actually, even if I need to spend the next 5 years in jail, well, it was really worthy doing it this time.
So when you pick a building, I'm just curious about the preparation. Do you study the building to come up with some kind of plan? Okay, where's the angle of the sun and where's the wind coming from? This kind of thing, or is it a much more spontaneous kind of endeavor for you?
No, no, yeah, actually, there is a lot of preparation. I am studying, yes, about the wind, about the humidity, about all factors. You know, watching, of course, the weather forecast. The biggest enemy, this is rain. But not only that, actually, too much humidity kills. You know, you start climbing, you feel okay, but after like 30, 40 meters, then you are realizing that, you know, your fingers are becoming wet, and then it makes it really tiring. You know, like pretty much a year ago, in 1 week from now, I was climbing in Hong Kong, a building that I have climbed previously, but it was really hot on that day, and I had difficulties to breathe. I could feel that my heart was really pumping a lot. You know, the fact that I was climbing a side in the sun, I really felt tired.
I was going to ask you if you ever get nervous before one of these big climbs.
I do because, you know, I like this game because it's a game in between life and death. It's very authentic. It's not like a bullshit game of a buying stock option and hoping that it's gonna climb up, and it's like, it's not exactly like playing Russian roulette, but it's approaching. Our world now is dominated by money, by consumerism, like by buying the latest shit, the latest phone, the car. Or, you know, I am tired about that world, actually. I don't like it. I'm that kind of guy, you know. I dreamt about being a knight, delivering my princess in a dungeon. You know, honestly, this is the message of our society. This is what our society is brainwashing us every day. People, they are pretty much sacrificing their whole life to make a lot of money to buy the latest shit that is in the market.
Yeah, well, that's why the happiness from material things often is pretty fleeting, and a lot of people with a lot of money are miserable on the inside.
You can be the richest guy of the cemetery.
So back to your thing, the climbing. Obviously, we've talked about the risk of losing your life, but even if you survive, I think most of these climbs you're doing are actually illegal, and you do run the risk of getting arrested and going to jail. And you've said that you actually prefer the fact that it's illegal. Why is that?
Definitely, I like it because I am observing our society, and then our society, everything is based on the rules, on CCTVs, on Big Brother is everywhere, and then there is a point that if you're a little bit intelligent, you may not really like it the way that the world is moving forward, and then you feel like kicking ass of the society, and then you start doing things that are not exactly legal, and it makes me really happy, and I love that, I love like when the cops they arrest you, and sometimes they made me feel like a piece of shit, but I fuck them, I was happy, because I can get some freedom. Those guys, they are already completely framed. They are really maneuvering in a system, and to be honest with you, this is not what I am hoping for the next generation. I wish that people, they can think more that by themselves. They can do more things that they wish to do, and not being too much manipulated by the society. And actually, we are quite a lot.
Well, you've said that climbing is as important to you as eating, breathing, and sleeping. I mean, clearly you can tell just watching you and listening to you, your passion for it. Along, is there a way to put into words the feeling you have when you climb a rock, when you climb a building? Is it just about sort of escaping death, or is it about the conquering a huge challenge for you? What is it that's so addictive, I guess?
It's about living, but living to the cutting edge. When you are really focused, you are no longer, thinking about all the bullshit from the society. You are 100% at it, and it's really enjoyable. It's difficult to express it. It's well, when you are experiencing it, you know how it feels, but
Hmm.
to put it into words, it's always complicated.
Yeah.
I'm trying my best to explain you what I feel, because it's really big. It's even enormous. And the closer you are from falling and dying, and the better it feels.
When you go into these climbs, knowing that, as you've said, you may or may not come back alive at the end of the day, do you say goodbye to people in your life who you're close to? That, hey, just in case I don't make it, it's been great knowing you. I love you,
I'm not doing it this way. I think about it. On the contrary, people, they may not even know I am a very sensitive person. I can easily cry, watching a movie, and it doesn't mean that I'm not a fighter. I am a fighter. Definitely, I'm a fighter, and then it allows me also to cry easily, because I don't feel ashamed like when I was young. I just thought, coming from my parents, a boy doesn't cry, a girl, she's crying, it's all bullshit. This is a system. It's all linked up with our brain and everything, our emotions, and then those tears, they are not coming from nowhere. They are coming from something. It's like because you're expressing something, you're sensitive. You feel things, and yes, I'm afraid to die. I also don't want to compromise myself too much, meaning there is things that I want to live, and then if the price is to die, it sucks, but I'm still willing to try. I'm still willing to do it.
hmm. Well, you've now scaled, I believe, 163 buildings in 70 countries. So I'm curious, when you started this, and I know it started with just that one building in Chicago, and then somehow a second came along and a third. But at some point, did you have some kind of goal? Like, I'd like to do a certain number of buildings by a certain time over my life? Or is it just so spontaneous that when the feeling strikes, you come up with a new building and go do it, and then you're back to just chill out till inspiration hits you again?
Yeah, more like that. Like, yes, at the beginning was I didn't even know exactly, I only knew I like it, but I just didn't know that I would be climbing buildings. Now there's 26 years that I've been climbing buildings. I had no precise target. Yes, along the way, yes, I just thought, okay, that would be great if I could climb the Sears or if I could climb the Petronas or whatever. But as long as I could climb a building that I liked, I just thought like, well, I wish I would like to go now to Mexico. Then okay, let's get a ticket and just let's fly there. And then along the way, Mexico is a big city. Then for sure I will be finding something that I can climb. And then I did it like in Sao Paulo, like in Rio, like in many countries.
I'm curious, we started the interview talking about your youth and being a little insecure and wanting a way to build confidence and maybe draw some attention. When you do these building climbs, there's a lot of media, there's hundreds, if not thousands, of people watching it, there's lots of coverage. You're known as the French Spiderman, and you've clearly built this really nice following. Is the adulation you receive where you derive value, or is it mostly really just the pure intrinsic value of just the joy of climbing it?
Well, actually, all of that came along the way, meaning inspiring people, being recognized, being appreciated is a nice feeling. Actually, it is very rewarding. But that was not the target because if we are looking back about what I was doing, I have been spending like more than a decade free soloing rocks, pretty much all alone, and I was just doing it for myself. And yes, when I started free soloing buildings, although I was still doing it for myself, then suddenly it put me into a different dimension. Instead of only being happy for myself, I knew that I was also inspiring thousands of people. And let's say that it gave even to my life a broader dimension than just free soloing selfishly.
When you're doing these climbs, which sounds like they just fill you with such euphoria to such a degree that it's hard to even put into words the feeling you get from it, the feeling you derive from it. When you're not climbing a building, are you able to find joy just in sort of daily activities and hanging out, or is it really everything revolves around the next climb for you?
No, no, not at all. No, no, no longer, because maybe I'm 58. I am having a little boy now. He's nearly 6 years old. I live in Bali, but every morning I go to a small resort 2 kilometers away from my house, and there is a totem overhanging the sea from 60 meters, and I climb the totem. I am sitting at the top and just watching the sun rising, watching the waves breaking. Now I have a new challenge. I want to stand up at the top of this totem with one leg. The width is only 4 cm and the length is 15 cm. There is only a space for 1 foot. Even the whole foot, the surface is not big enough. It came into my mind, around the last few months because of this confinement, like because I couldn't travel any longer. Then and along the way, I found out that actually it's a very interesting challenge. It's a tough one. Huh? If you fall, you die.
Oh gosh, I'm getting sweaty palms just listening to this next adventure. Alon, I think one of my favorite quotes comes from you, and it's as follows: most people are dreaming their life while I'm on the other side living my dream.
It is one of the most meaningful message because, as a matter of fact, I am meeting a lot of people who are not living. I knew that there was this franchise TGIF. Thank God it's Friday, so it means that people they are screwed up. They are working. They hate their jobs. They just make it because they need to make a living, one way or another. They need to work, but they are not happy living their life. And I understood when I was young that actually this is not the kind of life I wanted, because I was not interested in materials. I was interested in something that I could acquire by myself. I wanted to climb. I was not depending on cash. It was depending on me and only me.
Well, as you mentioned, you're just a couple years shy of turning 60. So when do you say enough is enough and hang up the cleats? How long do you think the building climbing can go on for?
And now I have no idea any longer. I remember because the first years I was doing it, I had a lot of journalists coming home, and I was telling them, well, maybe another 5 years, and now that the more I am getting older, the more I am going further. Meaning now I'm no longer saying 5 years. I'm saying most likely until I die.
Well, I always end with this. The podcast, the title is The Art of Excellence. I don't like to define the word excellence because I like it when my guests define the word. So, what does the word mean to you when you think of excellence?
Excellence could be like you have succeeded with your life. For sure, excellence is fitting with something that is volunteer, is something that you are enjoying, you are living for. It can't be something that you are forced to do it to hardly survive. Excellence, it means success, it means inspiring other people. It's a broad message.
I enjoyed every minute of this listening to you. And I can see that the passion and zeal that you have. And I don't think the living your dreams is a cliche for you. I think it really is the way you lead your life. And I can't thank you enough for spending time with me and sharing some of your story with me and my audience.
Thanks a lot.
Hey, thanks for listening. Okay, don't go. Don't go yet, please. Two favors. I ask simply two favors. One, if you could please download the iTunes app. You could do it on your phone. You can do it on the computer. Take 60 seconds and leave a review. It means a lot. Two, you can find my episodes on several social media sites, Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter. Find the one that you like the most. Find the one where you tend to have a lot of friends and followers. And if you could please either share it in the case of Facebook and LinkedIn, or retweet it on Twitter, that would mean the world to me. So those are the two asks I have. I love putting together this podcast. I hope you enjoy listening to it. Thank you so much, and I will see you again next time. Bye-bye.